Hello, welcome back to part 2 of the Autumn Park tutorial. Now if you have watched part 1, you notice that we left off here. In this one we're going to create more of the vegetation environment and hopefully start working on the park a bit more. So let's continue with our vegetation. Now if you remember in part 1, you should remember how we did this vegetation here. If not, I'll show you again on how I created this vegetation. First off, we're going to start with painting the terrain. And we're going to select this texture, go to one size, brush size, and we're just going to paint paths. Now we'll do this side as well. Now remember to fill the holes with another texture, which would be the previous texture that we added, or the most recent. Do this here. There we go. Okay, now we start with placing trees. Make sure that this brush size is set to 1 and these tree height and width are set to 100. Now you don't want to place too many big trees, you want to just place them evenly around. You go to the next tree and place them in the areas which have quite an open. Come back in, see, one can go there. Now we're going to get this tree, which is the next one, and we're going to place it in the gaps. On there. And now with this tree, we're going to bring the tree height and width down to 50, which is half. Place these in front, like so. Now if you are wondering why I'm placing smaller trees in front of these big trees, and I like to call it the bush effect. Now what this is instead of having grass among these huge trees, you have small bushes as well, which act as like a taller version of the grass, which really do blend well with each other. Now we're going to do this side. Oh, remember to change it back to 100 finishing with the final tree. Place there, place there. Get a nice one there. Maybe another one there. Move that back from there, and there. Now I'll put this down to 50. So, and now remember we've got to do the outside here, so we're going to change this to 3. Just do like 1 click every bit of area. Oh, someone on there, we don't want that. Okay, now we're going to change to a 7 size brush, and we're going to paint some more of the grass. So this is going to be in with the trees. see a bit too much there, so just hold the control and give it a few clicks. And go to the next one. And now we're going to change this to size 2, and we're going to paint a little bit of this at the front. Now if you look at it, if you see any gaps, then feel free to add another tree in. That to 100 and put another tree in there. There we go. Okay, now we're going to do the grass on this side. So first off, we're going to start with brush size 3 and start with the first grass texture. Now we're going to change our brush size to 7 again, and now we're going to paint the grass in the trees. Remembering, if you do click or hold the mouse button down too long, hold control and just give it a couple of clicks to remove some of the grass in the area. Go to the next one. Now we're going to change the brush size to 2 again, because we're going to paint in front. Like so. As you see now, we have quite a nice autumn effect with our vegetation. Now we will be making this more realistic later by adding directional light, or 2 directional lights, and I'll explain later why I use 2 in my levels. Okay, now we can maybe put a little bit there. There we go. Okay, let's put some veg on this side of the path. So first we're going to start with the painting. And try not keep this path painting in a straight line. Try and make it curve around. Like that. Let's paint in the gaps. Now remember, properly painting your terrain can be time consuming, but with the final result, it is worth the time. And later on we'll be doing height mapping for the far terrain, also adding the right objects in the distance for the far terrain to give it a nice effect. I do apologise if there is a fan noise in the background. That would be my CPU fan. I am going to be getting a new CPU cooler, which hopefully wouldn't make that loud fan noise. So I do apologise. Okay, it's good. Now let's add some trees. Remember spacing trees out, and then finding the big gaps and putting the next tree in. Move on to the next one. Then there. There. Yeah. Maybe moving that one forward a bit. Okay, go to the next one then, but change the tree height and width to 50. Putting these mainly near the front to give that bush effect. Like so. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the grass. First we're going to paint the first bit of grass just right out the front. 7 size brush. Now we can paint within the trees, so you don't just see the plain textured ground, although since we added more than one texture to the ground it isn't so plain, and it does give a nice blend with the vegetation. Okay, now we're going to change to a 2 brush size to paint this as front. Like so. Okay. As you see, we do have some nice nature adapting here. Okay, now I'm going to make an adjustment to the level. Now if you notice I put that there, I have decided not to put that there. I'm going to take it out. And instead I'm going to modify this area up here to allow it to come through here. So to start with, we're going to delete that wall. And we're going to press the R key to bring up the scaler, and we're going to shrink that wall. Move it across, and we're going to bring that across. Now if we go back to add-ons in the assets project folder, and we find the gate, rotate that at 90 degrees. Now we can place the gate where we want, which about there should be nice. Now we got to move this wall again. So shrink it again. Now if you are saying that that's too untidy for you, you can shrink that wall and that wall to an even scale. But for this tutorial I'm just going to leave it at that currently for now. Okay, we're going to get wall 1 in again and put it there. And you see that's out of it, so we're going to scale that down a bit. Move that across. Oh, I need to scale it up a little bit. Like that. There we go. So now we have an entrance and an exit, or an exit and an entrance, depending on which way you want to put it. Okay, let's continue with our vegetation on this section. So again, get the paint tool, change the brush size to 1, and paint paths. Now, I don't think there is an actual name for the method I'm using, so you could just call it the path method. Right, just finish up this area here. So we can finish the veg in this section, or the path section. Okay. Now we get the other texture, the most recent one, and we paint in the gaps. Okay, almost finished up here. Just a few little gaps to paint. Okay, that looks good enough. Okay, let's finish with the trees here. So we're going to go to the place tree tool, go to the first tree. Remember, make sure the tree height and width is set to 100. And we're going to spread out these big trees. Now nature can be placed randomly in this map, but not too randomly. You don't want to place it on the path or anything, or place it too close to the path. Okay, be like that. Go to the next one, and then put these in the front. Not too close to the front, because we're going to use the small bush tree there to go in the front. Like that. Now we're going to change the tree height and width to 50. Sorry, I changed that to 500. There we go. Put these in the front. There we go, that's great. Okay, now we're going to work on the grass, which is, first we're going to work on the first layer, which goes just out the front. So literally just, you know, a little bit of space between each few clicks. Remember, if you paint somewhere you don't want to paint, you hold the control button. And if you want to get rid of all the grass in the section, just hold the shift button. Okay, good. And now we're going to go to a size 7 brush. We've got to get in nice and close so we can see where we're painting. See, we've got some on the path there, which we do not want. Now we're going to go for the next grass. Now probably later you could, or we might add some more grass textures, but for now 3 is enough to get a basic rough out of what you want. Change the brush height to 2, and now we're going to paint in front to give a bit more detail. Again, if you liked the tutorial, the first tutorial, please give it a like. Feel free to comment. If there's questions you have, if you want to make a, oh, I forgot the word, a request on an environment you would like designed, or a tutorial on how to design that environment, would be more specific word, then leave a comment or send me a message through YouTube. I always check my messages and I always reply to my messages. Okay, we're not right there. I'm going to get rid of that there. Okay, now since we haven't saved the scene, it probably would be best to save the scene. We're going to call it main scene. Save it. Okay, now it's saved. So we don't, if it crashes, we don't have to worry about it. Now we're just going to check through the vegetation and make sure none of it is on the path. It's okay if it's growing over the path, but not going through the path. Like that there. We don't want that there. That's good. Now if you remember the first tutorial, we added some leaf particle effects and a wind zone. And what the wind zone does is it reacts with the tree creator and gives it a realistic tree movement effect. Okay, we've got particle effects, so now we're going to go to those particle effects, select them both by holding Control and clicking them, or just clicking one and holding Shift. I'm going to press W so we know where we're going, and we're going to click Control D to duplicate and just move them across. And keep doing that until we cover the path. Okay, that should do. And now if we click the play button, we'll have some nice falling leaves coming down. Gives it a really nice autumn effect. Okay, we're going to pause that now. We could move on to lighting and show you what the scene is capable of with a directional light using soft shadows. So we're going to go Game Object, Other, and we're going to create a directional light. I'm going to lift that up, try and put it there where we're working so it's easier to relocate, and we're going to move it across. We're going to lift it up a bit. Now as it's autumn, we're going to change the colour to a more orangey colour. And we're going to change that to 6. And now if we go where it says shadow type to soft shadows, you can see it creates soft shadows. Now we don't want the target strength to be 1 because it's pitch black shadows, so we're going to change it to 0.75, which will give it a lighter shadow. Okay, now we can leave those. Actually, we can bring the softness to around about 5 and the softness fade to 0.8. Actually no, we'll bring that down to 0.4. Okay, now we are going to duplicate this directional light and rotate it the opposite direction. We're going to bring that intensity down to 2. It's going to have no shadows. And the reason I do this is because it brightens up the shadows. Now you can change this colour. I'm going to change this colour to a more darky orange red colour. Kind of a pink red. And as you can see now, it gives us a really nice autumn feel to the colour, which is what we want. As you can see, as I'm going through, see the trees come into render. That's with the standard tree rendering in Unity. We can edit those settings later once we can determine what our settings can be once the level is complete. You can adjust it during the level, but it's probably best to do it at the end of the level. As you can see, we have a nice park area here, and now we're going to add some lamps. Put that there. Now when using lamps, you want to make sure that this here, toggle handle place active object, is on pivot and not center. Pivot puts it down to the bottom or wherever the pivot has been set in the modeling engine. Now we're just going to put a few lamps down. Now if these trees are annoying, you can click on the terrain, click on the settings and click the draw checkbox. That will remove them for now. And we're going to duplicate. We're going to try and space these out evenly. Select them, duplicate, move across. Nicely. As you can see, I put the lamps on one side. Now you can mix and match them, so you can put it there to there. And this one will be down here. And then this one will be down here. Now, it doesn't matter which way you do it. We could do it that way for now, because you can see it does give it a nice zigzag. And now we can enable the trees back again and the grass. Now if we click the play, now watch the shadows with the trees, it really gives it a nice effect. Gives it all a movement effect, which is what we want. We want to make our environment as realistic as possible. And yes, I'm currently using Unity Pro, but they have recently added a directional light shadows for one directional light, so you can do the shadow effect with Unity 3. Again, later in this tutorial we'll be using image effects, which would only be used for Unity Pro. Okay, now let's start moving up here with vegetation. So we're going to click on terrain, we're going to select the tool, make sure it's set to 1 brush size, and we're going to paint. Now obviously, as you see, when you start painting it removes the trees, but obviously when you unclick it brings them back up, which is good because then you can see where you're painting. Also again, I'm sorry if the audio quality is very bad. Probably best if you turn your speakers up. I will put a caption in the videos saying turn up your speakers, as the volume is very low. I've tried to turn it up but it just doesn't work. And these tutorials are probably for more advanced developers, but if you're just starting using Unity and you want to give this a try, give it a try. If you pull it off, then you're learning very quick and you can become a very good designer or developer later in life. But all these things take practice. As the rule says, practice makes perfect. Okay, bring that to 1. Now we're going to put some trees down in this sector here. So we'll put one there, one there, one there, one there. There, 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 there. We're going to get the next tree. Put it there, there, and there. Put a gap there, gap there. Oh, got there. Into the next tree. And you're probably wondering why I'm using different colour trees. Well, in most common environments, every tree is not the same colour. There's always different colours and different variety of trees in every environment. 50, sorry, 10. So try and mix and match. As you can see, for like the bushy ones, I'm using more of a darker colour. Now, it may seem weird, but as you can see, it does work with the environment. And as I remembered, I've got to fill the holes in the terrain, but not to worry, that can be done by simply just disabling the draw of the detail object, which is the trees and grass. And now we can fill in the gaps. I do suspect that this tutorial will probably be around about 3-4 part, probably duration of around about 5 hours. Now I know you're thinking 5 hours of video is going to be so boring, but once you finish and you see your result, that time will be worth, all that time spent will be worth it. Currently these two parts of the tutorial are being recorded at the same time, so if in this video before it's uploaded I don't reply to any comments, it's because the comments haven't been there during this tutorial. But on part 3, I should have some comments, or a comment at least, or some questions which I shall answer in these videos, while showing and teaching all about this level design here and how we're designing this level. Okay, so now as you can see, we've filled the gaps in, so we can turn the draw back on. And now we can start adding the grass. So we're going to start with the first grass. Oh, should have held that down. Remember, you can always go back and redo this to your liking. For this tutorial, I'm trying to use the basics of this, but later, after the tutorial lessons are finished, I might do an extra tutorial on adding more detail. Move up to 7. Now we're going to paint. Oh, Control V twice. Paint in the areas. Try and get, like with these grasses, try and get it in the big areas so we can cover it up. Cover up the texture with some nice grass. Okay, go to the next one. Place some of this down. Now you can place grass down randomly because grass grows randomly. Obviously with concrete blocking it, obviously it won't grow through the pathway, but it is randomly grown in the nature areas. And we'll change the brush size to 2 so we can put some detail in the front. As you can see, the direction of light does work well, but you probably don't want it to be facing like that. So we could just face it downwards. And obviously looking down, you will get the nature like that. Actually, we'll change it back to what it was. Sorry about that. Obviously, I'm guessing you probably wanted more shadows to be shown, like more light holes. As you can see, we've got some nice nature going on right now. Now we can add the lamps in. So if you see that lamp's there, and that lamp's there, so we're going to start here. Now if you're wondering why I did that, it's because when it comes to the next one, it should be on this side, which it shall be. Move that up a little bit. We're going to copy that. Move it up. To that. There. We're going to drag it down. Get that lamp again and duplicate it with Control D. Now we'll see that vegetation is getting in the way, so we're going to undraw it. Now we can get a better overhead view of the distance. That should do. Okay, got some nice stuff going on. I'm going to draw it back on. Okay, now since this location is done vegetation wise, we can add some more detail in. As you see, we've got leaf piles here. bring them up. Now obviously these don't have collisions, so you will have to manually move them up. I mean, if we put these near lamp posts, give it a little rotation. Go for the next leaf. Move them up. You know, we're going to use the big leaves, the leaves 1, near the lamp posts. Duplicate that. Move that on that side. Get both of them and duplicate them. And then we're just going to move them into the location like so. See, since we've done this, over here we'll have to just duplicate one of them and then move it. So what side was it on? That was on that side, so we could put this one on this side. And obviously you only got one lamp left, so we just get this one and duplicate it. Move it across to the lamp, and we should click F to focus on the object that you have selected. And on that side, so we're going to put this one on this side. There we go, it's a bit more detail added to the ground. And we'll see here we could add a leaf pile 2, which is a small pile of leaves which can go near the bin. Right, we could duplicate one more and have it just on the corner of this bench here, like that. Now if you zoom in on the objects, you'll notice how high they are off the ground. We want them to be as low as possible. So low to the ground as possible. There we go, we've got some more detail now in this level. And if you want, you could add like little stones on the corners, like that. I'll probably get a bigger stone, not too big. If you wanted to, you don't have to add stones on the corners, but if you wanted to, you could. Okay, now we could go for a barrier on this, so you're only stuck to the path by using a wooden fence. Now you want to make sure that those pillars are facing that way. So we're going to change this to -90 to rotate at 180. We can move it close there. And you want to mix and match them up, so we're going to get a broken one. Now we're going to try and align this up. Obviously it's broken, so aligning it will be a lot harder. As you can see, it's in the ground, which is not what we want. So we can rotate it a bit and then bring it back. Keep rotating it and bringing it back a bit. Okay, now as we got it set on global, that rotation there will still be in the exact same line. We have nothing to worry about there. And we can just keep doing that until we have it all set. Now doing this will create a barrier for the limitation of the player allowed to roam around in the vegetation. Now if you want to have the player allowed to roam the vegetation and don't put the barriers in, but since I'm just doing a walk around area path, I'm putting the barriers in just so the player can walk along the path to see the beauty of the quality in this pack. Obviously that one's, so we're going to start with a broken one. Go to 180. That across that way, that way a bit. 180. That across there. And now we're going to hold control, select them, press Control D to duplicate. Control D. Now you're probably thinking I keep repeating the commands like Control D, the R, the E keys, the W key, but the more I say it, the more you'll get used to using that key, which is important because those keys really do save you a lot of time. Now we could just select all these. So we can duplicate it. Now since we're on pivot, it's going to be on the last one, so we can rotate. Bring it back. If you look down the line, you can see it off a little bit, so we've got to bring it in with the rotation. And that should do. Bring it in there. Now we just drag it down. And we want to try and line it up with the last one we have down here. Which I don't think this one's right. I think this one is right about right on the edge. So right about there. Okay, now we can just put a fence in here. And we can just put this a little bit bigger. So we'll use one fence to cover this area. There we go. Now if you don't want to use a fence, you can also use a wall, which obviously gives a nice effect, but for now I'm going to be using these wooden fences. So I'm just going to select them. Click pivot so it's there. Probably best to click center for this one so we can see more down the line. Yep, and it looks like we only need one more fence to finish that off. Okay, we should give that a little bit of a scale. There we go. Now we're going to select these fences, or actually, I don't mind, we could just duplicate this fence that we have here. That way that saves us time trying to get the right rotation. Now you're probably thinking what I'm doing is kind of cheating. In a way it is, but in a way it's more or less shortcutting. But also keeping the environment to a top standard. Obviously keeping levels, keeping the same rotation, the same distance from the path. It shows that it is more realistic. As you can see, that's gone through there a bit, which is what we want, so we're going to shrink that a little bit, like that. There we go. Now, you can see we have a nice little pathway. Now we're going to do this one here. This one we will be rotating. Try and match it up to the right angle. Now when you're rotating like large amount of objects like this, you want to have it set on pivot because it's easier to match them up. Right, that's give that a try. Move it here. Set this on center now. So we get the center of the area that we're moving. Okay, looks good. I think we should move it down just a tiny bit. There we go. And there we go, we have a nice fence area with more vegetation around the location. Obviously we have some particle effects which we need to put some more down. Got some there, so we're going to put one, actually no, should be leaf particle 2 there. Since we've got leaf particle 1 there already. I'm going to move that right about there. Duplicate that, move that there. So you want to move it closer to the trees. Duplicate. And Control V. There we go. Now if we click the play button, we're going to have some nice particle effects going, a nice environment going, got the shadows going. And you can see now this environment is starting to look really realistic, which is what we're going for. Okay, this is all for this tutorial. If you like this video, then give it a thumbs up. If you've got any comments, any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section or send me a message through YouTube. And if you like this series and want more, then feel free to subscribe.